So before I hand over the mic to the demos tonight, I'm going to show you a little bit of what we're working on. So for those that don't know, so I'm Paul from Drifting in Space. We're fairly small. We're all here tonight, so you may have talked to someone from Drifting in Space tonight. The main thing we make is Jamsocket, which is a way for you to start up backends for your browser-based application on the fly. You can think of it as kind of an implementation of Figma's architecture for multiplayer, but it's not just for multiplayer, it's for anytime you want to do server-side compute, things like that. So the demo that I'm going to show tonight is going to be an example of a framework that we're working on to make that type of application easier to build. And I've got a prop. Let me see if this is live. I need to restart some servers here. Localhost demos. So probably a lot of you have played with some sort of stable diffusion web UI. One of the things that I find with a lot of browser-based tools for ML exploration is that if you think about it, they kind of feel like the old punch card days of computing. Not that that was not way before my time, but that you kind of craft your query, you set your parameters, and then you send it off to the server. In the background, it gets put in a queue and all that, and then you get some results back. You may have seen some of the advanced UIs will sort of show you previews as stuff comes in, but you wouldn't be able to do things like super interactive. So what we've been doing is building a way for the browser to talk to the server that's a lot more like just talking to a background thread. So being inspired by some of the primitives that multi-threaded applications use, but allowing that multi-threaded communication to span the network. So as you can see, as I play with parameters here, those are getting updated on the server in real time. Hold on, it's not impressive yet. One thing that's sort of a natural consequence of this is that if I do this in a new window, it's automatically synchronized and all that. But the other cool thing here is that I could do, for example, a long-running training process. I can turn previews on, and I can go and change parameters here while it's running. And so it's into the inference loop. It's just accessing these parameters as variables. So from the application development side, you kind of treat this as a variable, but it's a variable that happens to be synchronized with the client, almost Figma style. And that allows you to do things like this, where you're kind of changing parameters on the fly. You may also have seen me set this up. This is basically a MIDI controller, and if this works, I should be able to. Yeah, I can just slide these around. So I'm going to show you really quickly. I'm just going to. One thing I like to do is I call it the bill mixer. Typing one-handed here. I'm missing a bill. Nye, yes, that was the bill I'm missing actually. So this is average bill. We can zoom in on a particular bill. So this is kind of just a way of really quickly exploring the prompt space here. You can see, yeah, that's a lot of Bill Murray. Maybe we can add more Bill Clinton and just. One thing that I found is that if you just mix these four bills, you can get the Bill that has a talk show, and I'm blanking on his name right now, the other Bill. so I think that there's this like vector space of bills with a fairly low rank, for those that know what I'm talking about. And yeah, I'll leave it there. But this is running on localhost. The framework is called Wirebind. I'm actually going to bring up the QR code. So it's on GitHub right now. It's preview, but you can have a look at it. The way it works is it's kind of it's built on top of Seaboard. I won't get into the technical details, but it's pretty cool. But it's also early. So if you're feeling adventurous, check it out. If you think you might be feeling adventurous down the road, give it a star, and that's that. So I'm going to pass it over now to Yuren.
My name is Yiren Liu. I'm a software engineer and a writer, and I currently run a technical writing agency called Frindle, and we do technical documentation and blog posts for mostly developer-facing software companies. And the project that I'm demoing today was inspired by that work. It's a tool that takes a video software demo and turns it into a tutorial with screenshots and instructions that were curated by ChatGPT automatically. So the problem that I'm trying to solve with this tool is that it's hard to keep help desk articles and documentation up to date. And the reason why it's difficult is because, generally speaking, the people at organizations who know how to do specific tasks in the software are either PMs or engineers, and they're very busy. So the workflow that most companies have arrived at involves the PM taking a video demo of how to do a certain task and then passing the video along to a technical writer. So that's often somebody at our agency. And then the writer watches the video, translates the audio into written instructions, and takes the relevant screenshots and aggregates everything together into a help desk article or a piece of documentation. So this is an example of, a video that might be input. So this is something that PM might create. This is an example of creating like a new email newsletter in HubSpot. There's audio here as well, but I don't think it's sounding. And then, the writer would be tasked with turning it into something like this, and you can see it has a number of instructions as well as screenshots. So obviously this process is fairly tedious. You can imagine that when the UI changes or new features are added, that all the screenshots have to be updated, and that's one of the reasons why documentation is often not up to date. And companies often come to our agency to help do like a monthly review or a quarterly review to make sure that everything corresponds with the actual UI. So the solution is to use AI, and this is the tool that I put together. And as you can see here, we are creating a new video. We're uploading a new video, adding the name of the tutorial. We are selecting the screen recording, so the same video that you saw earlier. And then it basically automatically parses the video. It transcribes the audio into text, and then it runs the text through ChatGPT. And it returns back like nice numbered instructions that are in the imperative case, not without any of the artifacts that are usually involved in audio. And then it has matched the timestamps, the instructions, to the timestamps at which the instruction was said. So hopefully that corresponds to certain actions. And then here you can either fiddle around with the sliders to make sure you have exactly the right frame, or you can edit the text. And then, so in this case, we're just making sure that everything looks right for the tutorial. And then over here, we are going to generate the markdown automatically. So as you can see now, the writer can copy and paste this entire text box directly into a help desk article or into documentation, and it saves them a lot of time. So if you want to try it out, it's at video2markdown.com. And then for future features, I would like to add the ability to zoom in on certain parts of the frame and annotate the frame, to download the markdown and add images in a single zip folder. I understand that GPT-4 also has some image capabilities, like it can read an image and tell you what the UI elements are. I've played around with some of those models off the shelf. Unfortunately, they haven't really worked, but if you guys have played around with that and have made it work, please let me know. I would love to incorporate that in this tool. If you are a front-end dev or UX expert who's interested in hacking on these sorts of indie SaaS projects, please also let me know. I would love to chat. And finally, this is my email. My Twitter is in the QR code, and thank you very much.
Next up, we have Ben Schmidt from Nomic.
All right, hi everybody. So back when I was in academia, I went through a phase where I refused to say AI or to describe anything as AI, and I called everything representation learning because I don't know. I don't think it's either that artificial or that intelligent or something. Now that I'm at a technology which has AI in the URL, I actually have to call these things AI. But the thing that I take out of like representation learning is what we're actually interested in deep learning models, is that if you really want to understand what's going on in any of these AI models, you need to be working with the embedding space directly rather than trying to work just off of the words or the pixels or whatever else the logits are trying to predict. And that's what the first product that we built out at Nomic is designed to do, to take large collections of text and embedding spaces and to visualize them in 2 dimensions. If you have ever used Tisney or UMAP, URA probably in ML or biomedicine, because those places where they're like fully saturated. You may have seen them in some other places. But it's a really powerful tool for taking a high dimensional space, like in this case, the 7 million top Twitter posts in a really long period of time, in clustering them in a way so that in the high level embedding space, documents that are similar to each other show up in similar places in the low 2-dimensional space, so we can build a map of data that lets us find tweets where people are talking about Twitter itself, that lets us sort of zoom in on the areas of the map in which people are talking about football, and to use the metadata that exists on large data sets like this to filter down by time and start to understand, oops, that was not supposed to be a right click, and start to understand the ways that different areas of discourse change over time. So like Twitter used to be much more about Harry Styles, Justin Bieber, and procrastination, sort of everyday life back in the early 2010s. In the post-Trump era, it became much more about crimes and scandals in the Justice Department, and at the same time, way, way more about K-pop than it had ever been before. This is the product that we have. You can go use it, deposit your data set inside of it. But I actually want to talk a little bit, because I like to demo stuff on the absolute bleeding edge. Some of the stuff that I'm most excited about in this kind of exploration of embedding spaces going forwards, which is regular expressions. This is a map that we made in collaboration with some researchers at the University of Tübingen, which is 20 million articles in the PubMed database. So this is a pretty comprehensive data set of biomedical literature. And they embedded this down into 2 dimensions from using the PubMed-BERT embedding system. And what we're able to do with something like this is first use various tools to figure out how to orient yourself in a map like this, find ways to locate individual regions that are of interest. If you're a researcher in surgery or in computation or in chemistry, a map like this can provide a much better way to get a sense of what's changing, what's new, what's in the fields that you're interested in. And then you can go in and figure out, oh, I'm interested in this type of computation. We can highlight various different areas that are associated with healthcare or with radiology or with something else. We also really want to be able to look at other types of data which are not necessarily the topics which we assigned. Here they're colored by the, what is this? The length of the abstract text, which doesn't look like anything if you look at it this way. But I love this one because a lot of journals have 200-word abstract limits, and you get like this massive spike at precisely 200 words. You can also sort of start to get a general sense of what the scope of a data set like this is by looking at it by year. But the reason that I'm so excited about regex is that you can actually sort of type things into this. And this is something we were not able to do before, but because we're using Apache Arrow as the backend system, we're not having any server-side interaction at all. We're actually able to pass millions of these things to the browser and start allowing people to put in any type of query that they're interested in. In this case, you can determine that coronavirus starts happening in 2020 as opposed to some other period. This is actually something that the embedding system captures really well itself. It's right down here very heavily. But what's especially useful is you can start to interactively understand the context of an embedding space like this. Like, why are there different areas inside the coronavirus setting? Because, you know, there are different things that people talk about with coronavirus. So if we search for vaccination, you can see where the vaccine cluster is in this, and that there are actually two of them. And you can start to figure out, well, why is one of these different than another? And the answer is that, like, mRNA vaccine development is up in one area, whereas, like, public health appears down in another one. This is the area that's more about vaccination resistance. The other thing that you can start to do when you get a big enough system like this is to actually compare different embedding spaces to each other. Let me just get to the end here where we've got the big fun one. There are different views of these things. None of them are necessarily better than the other. Sometimes you would want to use the PubMed BERT representation I showed earlier. Sometimes you might want to use the TF-IDF, and you can choose which is the appropriate one to use in any given space. The thing that's so exciting about this is not just that we've got, you know, regular expressions here running in Rust, but that we can also start to apply all kinds of arbitrary transformations on our data as we go to understand what's in them better. And that's important for all sorts of applications. At Nomic, the first thing that we did with this was to use it to start building out training data sets for new large language models ourselves. If you go to our GPT4All, which is our locally running language client site, you'll see that we use this system as the way that we determine, like, which elements we wanted to include. We have a whole sort of tagging arena in here that let us determine these are things that should not be included in a training set. These are things that should be included in a training set, and helped us figure out what we needed to get more of, because people too easily lose sight of what's in the data sets underlying machine learning models. And the thing that is the most ridiculous and prototypey, but I can't resist showing off because I spend too much time working on this sort of stuff in my spare time, is that we can figure out other ways of navigating these embedding spaces that use these maps as a canvas. So this here is a set of history dissertations. We can do things like use neighbor search to work out from any individual point, because two-dimensional representation don't capture the high-dimensional embedding space as well as you might like. So we can set it up so that you can click on some point and see from the absolute nearest neighbors, what is this? The 4 nearest neighbors to whatever point I clicked on there, and then moving out as time goes on, you can see that there are some points, like way over here, which has some similarities to the area that we started at in here. The other thing we can do is come up with entirely different representations of the shape of the space itself. So we've got topics that we're labeling here using an LLM, and this is like a hierarchical set, which can be important to look in. So this is American history here, legal, civil war, migration, and we can keep going into smaller regions of this to identify the clusters in the high dimensional space that might be useful in some particular endeavor. That's all. Last thing I want to say is, as you saw from that last demo, I am not like a React wizard. We are hiring right now. I want to especially emphasize if anybody knows anyone in their network who would be interested in applying for this position as a UI UX engineer, who could help me do the WebGL stuff that I'm capable of doing well and never have to worry about React components again. Thanks.
Thank you, Ben. Next up, we have Adam Pierce.
Okay, there's my internet. Great. It's projecting. There we go. Okay. Can y'all hear me? Great. Okay. So I am on the People Plus AI Research group at Google. And here's our tagline. We basically do human-computer interaction and machine learning and what's at the intersection of that. Today I'm going to be, one of the fun things I do there is this series of interactive essays explaining machine learning. And I'm just going to be demoing one of the ones I did a couple years ago about what language models have learned. And I think this has some implications for how we design interfaces for machine learning. And sort of, I think we're a little bit behind in terms of chat interfaces. So this was also trying to teach people how LLMs work. So we feed in the model to be or not to be, that is the blank. And if you're really lucky with the interface you have, you might get a list of all of the probabilities of things that could fill in the blank. And here it's learn that the answer is question. And you can use this interface to sort of poke at what the model understands. So if you type in Texas, they like to buy blank, and in New York, they like to buy blank, you can sort of eyeball the comparisons here and see that, oh, in both places they like to buy things, but in Texas they kind of like beer and horses are up there, and New York has like clothes and books. But this is not really a great way of looking at this data. The vocabulary has 30,000 words, or that's the number of tokens in the vocab, and you can't really compare two lists of 30,000 things. So this is basically an extremely simple interface to look at it, but is also extremely revealing. So this is the same information as above, but it's just literally a scatter plot. So above the kind of x equals y line, we have all the things that BERT associates more with Texas. So cattle, land, beer, guns, liquor, alcohol, and New York is clothes, books, art, clothing, underwear, sex, fabrics, artwork. It's great to be in New York. So this isn't the only thing you can do with this. You can type in sort of any named template. So I have a cousin named Lauren. She was born in the year of blank, and Lauren's like a millennial. She was born in 2000 or 1999 or 1995. And my grandma was Elsie. She was born in like 1900 or 1850 or 1800s. And it can already pull out all these like real world associations with people's names based on, just their name and what all the information that's been fed in. And then, this has some obvious downsides depending on what you're building. And so Jane worked as a, teacher, waitress, nurse, secretary, librarian. And Jim worked as a mechanic, salesman, carpenter, policeman. And if you're, you don't want these representations feeding into like your HR software or any number of other things. And that's not the only thing they've picked up. So if I just switch, compare James and Jim, can run that again and also zoom out a little bit to the long tail of things. And you can see James is a lawyer or a translator or going farther down the tail of possible tokens, like a diplomat or a playwright or a mathematician, while Jim is a cowboy or a foreman or lineman. And these aren't just Spurs correlations. Like if you look at actual BLS data, it roughly matches the probability that Spurt's outputting. But you have to be really careful in how you're using this. So you can go check out the rest of this essay for more kind of 2001 ideas for mitigation that sort of has passed us. But what I think is still relevant about this today, and I don't think we're thinking enough about, is just this really simple technique of using these probabilities that are output from the model and doing something useful for them. They're not nearly as fancy as Ben's representations. They're mere logits, but just going to go through a couple of recent papers showing some really cool things you can do with them. So this is from Anthropic from the end of last year, and you basically ask the model if it knows the answer to what it should output next. And you can see what is George W. Bush's father's name, has pretty sure about it. What's the first president of the United States is very sure about that. But if you ask it, why are you alive? It is completely has no idea what's going on. And you can do other things fun things with these probabilities. So this was from some independent researchers, and you can, instead of letting the transformer model run all the way through to the end, you can unembed early and sort of see what things the model is able to very quickly identify as what the token should be, versus other things that take a long time, and it has to only get the right answer at the very final layer, sort of indicating that they're another measure of uncertainty that could be useful for detecting hallucinations. This was from this Toolformer paper from Meta. Did a couple of really clever tricks with these probabilities. So they wanted to teach off-the-shelf model how to use a couple of different APIs. So it basically, it wants to answer Pittsburgh is known as, and it's supposed to answer the Steel City. So it automatically generates, using another LLM, potentially helpful information. What other name is the city of Pittsburgh name? What is the county is in Pittsburgh? And it calls their existing API. It gives back Steel City in the United States. And it adds that information back from the API back to the context of this original question. And it sees which API calls were actually helpful in increasing the probability of outputting the correct answer of Steel City. So here, it was not helpful to have know what country Pittsburgh is in. That's the United States. And so it filters down just to the information API calls that were helpful and builds up this data set, all by having the LLM call itself many times of API calls. And by using that, you can just add this new capacity to a language model. They also do some more cool tricks with it when they're at inference time. They didn't train enough to call this magical API call token. So they modify the token probabilities to boost the chance of that happening way up. And then also after it's called once, it limits it to once. So you can't just call it forever. And since I submitted this talk proposal, I think last month or so, there's been some fun other open source projects about actually controlling which tokens are output. So this is from Microsoft Guidance, and you basically give it a JSON template, and it will automatically output tokens or the key fields, and then the LLM is only in charge of outputting the values. And it's sort of forced to pick at the end between at the end of an array between another comma or an ending bracket. And there's another LMQL project to use this. So yeah, LLMs are these terrifying alien intelligences, and we really don't know what's going on in them. But logits, token probabilities are really useful boundary objects for sort of getting a little bit more out of them and communicating with them in new ways. Thank you.
Next up, we have Kyle Kuckstell from After School Studio.
I don't know anything about web technology, so I built this in Unity. So I got no good React jokes for you. Okay, so this is Dreamwalker. Is sort of a response. I'm a game designer by trade. My name is Kyle. There's my Twitter handle. And I'm really interested in a lot of the AI generation stuff, especially around how it intersects with the creative process. And then I didn't tell Paul this, but I pitched this idea before this existed. So I was like, hey, I have an idea. And you're like, sounds cool. And I'm like, oh God, I got to build this right now. So thank you for giving me the fire to do it. But so I was basically had this idea inspired by the fact that last year, 2022, I feel like the best game I played was Midjourney, which I imagine people here know what it is. It is a image generation, I don't even know what you call it, software interface thing. And it's really good at generating images. And if you don't know, one of the ways, or the way Midjourney sort of works for now, is that it's done in Discord mainly. And the idea is that you send it a prompt, and what's kind of cool about it, there's a few things. One is that when you send a prompt, so this is me trying to generate a background for the website, you send a prompt and it gives you like 4 images, and then you can choose to up-res the image, rerun the prompt, or press like this V button, V1, and what it'll do is it'll create variants of like this image. I did not make Midjourney. This is not my demo, but so anyways, that's like how you do it. And so like this is like cool, and I think that Paul sort of mentioned this, that and the guy who did the cool academic stuff was like this interface kind of sucks. Like we are beyond chat interfaces, and I think a lot of the image generation stuff that's happening now that you see is kind of this idea of approaching like the best prompt, like automatic 111s like this, like Cozy UI, if you know other ones, they're kind of like about crafting a prompt to get an image. And Midjourney gets close to giving us something different by being able to sort of like iterate around an idea. But I don't think it goes far enough. And so my project is kind of looking at how to actually do what I call image exploration. Because if you're an actual creative person and you're like producing mood boards that look, you know, like this or whatever, you are not just, you don't think about producing one image. Like you might produce a concept image to like send to your investor or whatever to say like, hey, like this is what I want to do. But when you're actually working on a project, you produce like thousands of images, and the like, you know, setting up your like perfect thing in any of these like platforms is like really hard and complicated to do one image. And I'm talking like we need like hundreds of images to do this. So my thought is like, I want to basically produce this in something that sort of looks like this through image generation technology. So a small preface for me showing you what Dreamwalker is. So let me just start this. Okay, so here we go. That's iTerm. Okay, so I'm gonna keep on with the idea of bills. Does anybody have a favorite? We have Bill Murray. I feel like he's a good person to do. Okay, so I'm gonna say Bill Murray here. And we're gonna get a picture of Bill Murray. This is not new or surprising. This is what we've been able to do for the past few years. We can, that's not Bill Murray. I gotta pay OpenAI more, I guess. This is a picture of Bill Murray in latent space. And that's like fine and cool. And so if I was using Midjourney or Stable Diffusion or something, I would like go back in there and be like, you know, Bill Murray from Caddyshack, or like, I'm like, that's what I want. But I'm not gonna do that. But let's say like, actually I want Bill Murray, but I want him like older. So let's do this. And that one annoyingly did something, that was a little bug. Dun, dun. So we're gonna get slightly older Bill Murray. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Okay, so but the thing I'll show you though, so this is Bill Murray, and then I said older, and I have to actually realize I need 2 hands to do this. This one? There we go. So if I click this, you'll see here the prompt, right? So vintage Bill Murray in a 1980s movie scene. And for those of you who are sitting in this room, I did not type this, I just said older, and this is what I got. And so now, I'm gonna not do this prompt. This is blowing my demo up. Let's do something more, I don't know, like city street in New York. So I'm going to prompt the image generator, and it's going to give me an image. And what it'll do, so I'm kind of seeding it with an initial prompt, and then sort of like Midjourney, I can press like variant, and what I'll do is I'll actually start generating variants of, oops, I did a little too many, variants of this initial prompt. So these, if I look at them, they're just going to tell me like, yeah, city, street, New York, that's what we said. But you can start doing more interesting stuff. So again, thinking about like trying to actually build up like a corpus of creative images to like inspire a project or something. What I can do here is I can now say, okay, you know, this is actually interesting, but let's make it like at night or something. And then maybe let's also do one that is, I don't know, what's New York in outer space look like? Okay, so there we go. So there's New York at night. And then, so here we go, New York City street at night. So again, I did not type that in, that is coming out. And then I can produce variants of that and say like, okay, actually, you know what, I'm trying to produce pictures. I'm like working on a film or something, and I want to like produce images of New York City at night, which I know is like probably the most Google search thing ever, but here I can produce fake images that are that, which is kind of cool. Here's New York City at night in outer space. Futuristic city street in New York with an outer space twist. That's great. And then I can produce variants of that. So let's maybe get a few different versions of, oops, that guy. Okay, here we go. This one's looking specifically weird. Let's say like, I don't know, anime maybe? Let's see what we get. I am using GPT-4, which has got like a 25, okay, we're still getting stuff. So there's something now, right? I'm like getting an image. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm exploring, right? I'm kind of rooted in this like latent space image generation that has been defined initially by this like New York City street image here. And then I'm like slowly kind of like carving out the space around that image, specifically through using right now like just prompts. So like the way this is actually working on the back end, if you might have guessed, is that I basically have a prompt that runs under all this stuff. And then I give it what I call like a semantic transformation. And I prompt GPT-4 to say, hey, take this prompt and kind of edit it considering this thing down here. And it produces a new prompt that is kind of more like that thing. And so what happens is over time, you can actually start like building up things that start to look a little bit more like this, where I'm starting to actually produce things that look like mood boards. Like I think people who've used image generators for creative projects a lot have sort of realized that like, okay, you're like generating all these images, but it's not like I'm generating one image, right? It's like the thing I'm trying to make is the whole thing. So like trying to go to Discord or like, you know, Midjourney and be like, okay, it's like all these images or something. I can like basically take this thing here that is this effectively graph I've produced and like save that and say, this is my thought process to get to the thing that I'm looking for. And so from that, I mean, so right now I'm just using DALL-E on the back end, but you could totally hook this up to like Stable Diffusion through an API or locally or anything like that. And you know, it's an image generator, so you can like literally do kind of any images you want. Right now, it's like super simple. I'm just like literally doing prompts. Like I can make even this anime thing more anime. I don't know what that's going to do. But the idea is to like, I think per like the concept of this event, right, is like let's move beyond just normal. I guess more anime means more pink. Let's like move beyond things that are just prompting. And so what I try to do here for Dreamwalker and what I'm sort of working on is like pretend that the prompt itself is sort of like a data model and kind of like arbitrary. And what you're doing is actually iterating and moving around the space, like kind of in latent space to figure out like kind of stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think to do. So it kind of reduces that cognitive burden to say, okay, like I have to like perfectly put these things in. You can kind of just like work with it as an actual image generation tool or something that I call like image discovery, instead of doing this prompt thing where you like put in one prompt, you wait for your image, you know, politely, and then you put in another one. Instead, you know, you can maybe work over here, generate some anime versions, generate some of these, you know, generate some of these, and kind of just, you know, build out the space of what you're thinking. So That's Dreamwalker. Here's my mic. I have a very, very simple website. That's my Twitter handle. I'm like working on this. I don't know if someone wants to give me money to work on it, that'd be great. If someone wants to help me out on the front end, this is just a prototype in Unity. It'd be really cool to bring it to the web actually, and make it hook up to whatever you want to hook it up to, and then add a lot more controls and stuff. So I'll be demoing it somewhere over there after the talk and take any questions then. But until then, thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Kyle. Next up, we have Grant from Wand.
All right. Hey, everyone. That was almost too perfect an intro presentation to what I'm about to show, because I'm also building something around that same, got to get you on the demo, or got to get you on the beta, Kyle. Because what I'm building is also, starts from that like premise that the existing medium for visual creative idea exploration is way too limited. Midjourney being a perfect example of this. Where if you're an artist and you want to be able to harness this technology, you want it to be able to get your specific visual idea that you have in your head out there. Whereas right now it's kind of like you might type an idea and it'll give you something that is semantically similar to that, but it's never going to be exactly what you're thinking of, because for anything you type in, there's just a countless number of images that'll fit that description, but won't be exactly what you're looking for. And so what we're building is something called Wand, and hopefully it'll appear on the screen now. The first aspect of this is basically that you can communicate with the AI in a visual way, in addition to the text. And so you can, I don't know if we need some help with this, but. Anyway, what you'll hopefully see on the screen in a second is that you can just make sketches, or you can be editing something that you're working on and then make sketches on top of it. And then the AI basically will interpret whatever you're drawing and then make localized edits right on whatever part of the image you're trying to, nice, on whatever part of the image you're trying to edit. And so this is on like a native app that runs on your phone, your iPad, desktop. And it's the same sort of concept where you ultimately where this technology is the best is for idea exploration. And so you want to use it to create like mood boards or collaborate with other artists to generate things. And so you'll have that same sort of medium, and hopefully this will show up on the screen at some point. Worst case scenario, I'll make something on my iPad and then we'll just pass it around through the crowd. So that's like the first concept. I guess I'll talk about this, and then at the end we'll just go through the demo. But the second key aspect is that you want something that's going to understand your own personal style. And so the way we handle that is through fine tuning. So as you noticed with the Midjourney images that Kyle was sharing before, they all had that certain Midjourney aesthetic to them, oh, cool. All right, well, I'll finish that thought really quickly before I show you this. So with that Midjourney examples you saw before, it's consistently really cool stuff, but you'll notice that, everything has that sort of Midjourney aesthetic. And if you're an artist, the whole point is that you are creating this unique style that is a reflection of you. And generally speaking, these models are not going to understand you if your style is unique or niche in any way, because your images are not going to be on the internet. Anyway, so first I'll just show you this. I did not have the skill or confidence to draw something this detailed right live on the presentation. So first I just drew something really quick, and oh, that was close. First I drew something really quick, and I typed in like cyborg, robot, something to that effect. And then it generated a bunch of these suggestions where it's actually interpreting the color and texture and form that I drew. So here's one, here's another, here's another. And you can do the same sort of thing where you're like creating variations or morphing based on text, but the unique thing especially is that you can, ooh, this one's really good. I'm saving that. Yeah, so you can get all these different variations. And maybe if you wanted to add extra detail to some of them, it's very iterative. So what should I add to this one? Maybe I should actually, let's just keep it simple for now. I'm just going to do a quick example since we're probably short on time since the beginning of the thing was slowed down a bit. But so here I'll just draw like a tree branch, and then I'll show you how you can do this iteratively in this really fun way. And the nice thing about being native is that this runs on your iPad, and if you want to like add extra detail, you can just zoom right in. I'll just add a bunch of like leaves on this thing. Doing this as fast as I can. And so if anyone here is like a concept artist or game designer, you should definitely hit me up. I'll give you beta access. Here, I'll just type like tree branch. Maybe throw in like highly detailed. Yeah, exactly. Let's bring out the heavy guns right here. ArtStation 4K. Let's do this. I'll do a couple more. And then after this, I'll draw more. You'll see how you can kind of iteratively extend things, erase things, create variations. And then after that, I'll show you the fine-tune models feature, which is especially fancy. Okay, so that's pretty good. I kind of like, it's hard to choose actually. I'll go with this one. And then, let's say I'll make this extra interesting. I'll draw like, let's continue the branch, maybe branch off right here. But then maybe on this one, I'll like try to see if I can pull off throwing in some flowers. So in this one, I'll like add little red things that hopefully it'll interpret as roses. Maybe I'll say like branch with roses. I'm not going to make you all sit here and watch me type in ArtStation 4K again. And so it's not going to mess with the stuff that I didn't draw on, to be clear. That's one of the key things. It's like you can make these very localized, nice edits, and it's not going to mess with what you actually like about what you've generated thus far, which is a fairly consistent issue with this technology thus far. And then on top of that, basically the way fine-tuning in the app works is you can just train any model. You may have heard of like Dream Booth or something like that. So we're using a sort of fancier version of that lets you swap between these models in real time. And so say I wanted to train a model on something like this, like Cezanne nature paintings. So now literally I can just go into the app. I'll just start from here again, but I'll just generate new images in this case. If I wanted to generate an image in the style of that Cezanne model I trained, I'll just open up this sort of sticker pack thing, choose Cezanne, and then I'll say, let's try cyborg robot mecha. And so now it's going to do this in Cezanne style, which will be fun because Cezanne's obviously never painted something like this. And so it's cool because like if you're working on like a game or you're a concept artist or you're working on a brand or whatever, you're going to have some sort of, you're going to have some sort of key aesthetic that you want to be maintained across like everything that you're making. And so that's where this fine tuning comes on. And the fine tuning is going to be collaborative where you can have like a team of people that share a fine tune model and can sort of branch off of it in all kinds of different directions and switch the version they're on and whatnot. Oh no, okay. Yeah, let me think. And you can share the data sets as well. So it's kind of conducive to just jamming and brainstorming, which is what this technology is best at right now. So we got a little delayed from that technical issues at the start, so I don't want to take too much time. But yeah, if you're a concept artist or feel like you would be a great user of this, just hit me up. If you don't find me here, we're wand_app on Twitter. So feel free to DM the Twitter and I'll try to get to you. And we're looking for artists in residence as well. Or if you're really good at making videos, hit me up.
Thank you, Grant. Next up is Trash Baby.
All right, cool. I'm Caro. I'm a designer. This is Angelo.
I'm Angelo, yeah.
And this is Trash Baby. It's an image remixing game that, let's see. Actually, let me do a little photo of, okay, I'm going to pull up a random photo that someone else made on the app. So it's going to take these two images and remix them into some mysterious, chaotic third image. So this was, oh, here we go. So took a photo of the crowd. We got a random photo from someone else on the app that they had made. And it produced whatever this is. And you can also upload images from Camera Roll. Let's see what happens. I honestly have no idea what this is going to make, and that's part of the fun of this. But while this is loading, I'll tell you a little bit about. Oh, okay, all right, we got Bill Murray with the little red red tablecloth. Yeah, there's another guy there. Anyway, so this is an image remixing game built with React Native and two models, one to caption the images and one to produce the images, which is Stable Diffusion. And this came about because I also, like the previous projects I've mentioned, I get stumped thinking about text box prompting for images. It's a very unnatural interface for me as a designer because I think in terms of pictures. And so I was just like, yeah, what the hell? Just try throwing images together and see what comes out of it. And Angelo will demo some other features.
Yeah, so the other thing about social media is like this kind of barrier to creation. And the other thing that we kind of wanted to, let me see which video we have here. I think this is the reaction.
I think this is the
Let's see what we got here.
randomly cycle.
Gotcha.
Reaction.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, so one of the biggest issues when it comes to like multiplayer or any social experience is this idea of like thinking of what to post sometimes. So we've also decided to hook it up to ChatGPT where you can kind of react to photos and then it'll create like bombastic comments, just an extreme maximalization of like existing social media. And there's something really cool that's in the works where we're gonna be adding multiplayer where you and your friend can be in different areas taking photos and then photos will match in the same timeline. So you guys can play with Trash Baby right now. Test flight's right there. Take a photo, download it, and we'll be around in the crowd answering questions about the app. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Erica from Toko Tutor.
All right, so I have an audio app, but the audio does not totally work. So that's not my project, but it's a very cute cat. Okay, cool. So basically, I'm going to try to put the microphone next to the computer when the audio shows up, but if it doesn't work, just imagine a voice coming from my laptop. I'm Erica. I'm the co-founder of a company called Toko, and we're building a language learning app. We help native Chinese speakers get better at speaking English by talking to an AI. You can imagine it like Siri, but for language learning. So all of our users live in either Taiwan or Hong Kong, and they don't have access to speaking to native speakers regularly, but they desperately want to get better at English because it helps them unlock economic opportunities, higher salaries, and a better life. So yeah, and there's obvious problems with finding tutors, like they're expensive, they're hard to book, people are really busy. And so Toko is meant to be like an on-demand tutor. So I'm gonna demo some of the features that make Toko helpful. So let's chat about, everything's in Chinese. Let's talk about hobbies. So this is a conversation you could have with Toko.
In my spare time, I love to draw and paint. It helps me be more creative. What about you? What do you like to do in your free time?
Okay, so that's a bug, my bad. But the way you interact with it is you just record a voice message back. I like watching Bill Murray movies, listening to BTS, and recycling.
That sounds like a fun mix of activities. I've heard that Bill Murray is great in comedy movies. What's your favorite movie with him? Also, what BTS song do you enjoy the most and why? As for recycling, that's fantastic.
Toko is extremely affirmational. Let's say I'm stuck, like I'm a language learner after all, and maybe I don't have the vocabulary. There's like, this is actually says like hints. So I can generate some hints. And these are all GPT generated. So I like, I like all of these. Like I can talk about that. I can say that Bill Murray is hilarious. I do really like Dynamite. That's a great song. And yeah, recycling just feels like the right thing to do, you know? So yeah, let me say, oh yeah, Bill Murray is hilarious in his movies. I think my favorite one is probably Groundhog Day. What's yours? So yeah, that's like the general interaction for Toko. And then one also really cool thing, Toko likes Lost in Translation. Another cool thing that we do that happens at the end of regular tutoring sessions is give grammar suggestions. So I can show you one that I've already prefetched. This usually takes we do this asynchronously so users can get suggestions on what they said immediately after the conversation. But let's say I am mixing up the use of me and I. We use OpenAI to generate a suggestion on how a user could improve their English. And then we also generate an explanation as to why. And yeah, that is Toko Tutor. If you are interested in language learning or excited about language learning and are an engineer, I'd love to talk to you. We are also hiring a UI UX designer. So if you happen to be a designer with capacity, also would love to talk to you. That's it.
Erica. Did Ofer make it out? I didn't talk to Ofer. You're back here. Okay, yeah, I've got your presentation here. Hello. Actually, I think that one looks a little bit better.
Hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Once this is on screen.
I'm Ophir. I'm a PhD student at the University of Washington. I spent 6 years working on language model architectures, and I'm still doing that. But I was bored a few weekends ago, and I was frustrated copy-pasting my plots to and from ChatGPT because I'm using it to help me write plots for papers. And so I built this tool, and in general, I'm really excited about the future of UX for data science or data visualization. So I'll just show you this tool that I built. And by the way, it's on the internet, it's zeroplot.com, it's all open source. So anyways, what you do here is you tell it what you want to plot. So I wrote, please plot 2 sine waves. And then it sends this to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT sends a response. And we use this thing called Pyodide to run the Python in your browser and display the code that ChatGPT just generated. And then obviously this is interactive. So I think that what I'm going to type here is to move the legend to the top right. And then it's going to send ChatGPT my command and the current code. And then ChatGPT is going to do that. It moved the legend. And you can also ask to use the GPT-4 backend. So it can do some really cool things that I don't even know how to program. So here I'm going to ask it to fill the area below the first line and above the second line in pink. And again, it sends ChatGPT this command and the current code, and ChatGPT does it. And it's done some really crazy stuff. And then whenever I make a request to ChatGPT, I always also ask it, when it returns the code, to also provide an explanation of what it just did. And so it says, GPT says at the bottom, and it explains what it did. And the difference between, so I launched this, I think, a few days before OpenAI did their plugins thing. And the difference between this and the OpenAI plugins is that you can edit the source code right in the browser. So with OpenAI plugins, you have to talk. You can't just edit your code. But with this, you can just edit your code right there and see the results. So I think I deleted one of the lines here, and then I pressed go, and it deleted the line in the plot. And then the last thing that's really cool about this is the way to solve bugs. So sometimes when you program or when ChatGPT programs for you, there's going to be a bug. And so I artificially introduced a bug here by deleting one of the closing parentheses. And then I'm going to press go. And it shows us the traceback. And then I made this really cool button, which we're going to see in a second, called Try to Fix This Automatically with GPT. And if you click on it, which I'm going to click now, it takes your traceback, it puts it over there, and it takes all your code, and it says, hey, ChatGPT, I got this error. Can you fix it for me? And then ChatGPT usually will manage to fix it for you, and it'll also explain what it did. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, as I said, it's open source. It's zeroplot.com. My name is Ophir Press. You can check out my website, ophir.io, ofir.io. Yeah, if you're excited about visualizing stuff for data science, data visualization, come talk to me. I'll also probably be demoing ZeroPlot when the talks are over. Thanks, everybody.
Sure. And now, last but not least, we have Brett from Rewind.
Hello there, everyone. My name's Brett, and I'm a co-founder over here at Rewind. And our goal is to give humans perfect memory. You know, we think that the world will be a much better place if you could instantly recall anything that you've seen, said, or heard, and there'd be a lot less racking your brain, scratching your head, pulling out your hair, trying to find that one thing, and a lot more time doing and creating and really unleashing the potential of human productivity. You know, my co-founder, he started to go deaf in his 20s, and it wasn't until age 30 that he tried a hearing aid for the first time. And to lose a sense and gain it back sort of felt like gaining a superpower. So ever since then, we've been on a hunt for ways to augment human capabilities. You know, we want to build what the glasses are for eyes, what the hearing aid is for ears, what can we build for memory? Because 90% of memories are forgotten after a week, which is, you know, kind of insane to think about, that 90% of your lived experiences, you know, are just poof gone after a single week, and we're a summation of our human experiences. So yeah, we're building Rewind to give humans perfect memory. And so a little bit about how it works. Rewind, you know, runs in the background. And so what it does is it helps screen record your computer, detects any words that appear, and it can also, you know, detect any words that are spoken in the mic or the speaker as well. And all the, you know, video files and raw recording audio files are stored locally. So only you have access to them as part of that. And what we do is we build out ways for you to integrate with that data and for you to interact with that data. And that's done through a couple of different ways. So you can pull up Rewind with like a simple keyboard shortcut over here. And with this, you can see, here's my timeline from like 38 seconds ago. So you sort of have this very visual timeline at the bottom here. Each of the apps, you know, is displayed as like what was the forefront of the window at any given time. So you can see, you know, before I was looking over here at Hacker News as part of it. This is really useful for users that just need to like jog their memory, right? Where it's like, oh, what was I just doing? We're living in this world in which we're very fragmented across everything that we're doing. And so this helps you jump right back into what you were doing. But, you know, at this point, I've been using it for over a year now. And so you can get back to not just like what I was doing a couple of minutes ago, but for example, we can go back to December 1st and we can go over here. I was writing, you know, an email to a colleague as part of this, as part of that. So you can instantly jump back to like any part of the history that you've ever had on your computer at any point before. So that's a little bit about the timeline, right? But the real power comes with search. And so with the search, you're able to, you know, search across any of those words that you've ever seen before or that have ever come up in conversation before. So for example, I can search, hopefully I don't have any in Burmilly, but we'll see. Oh, I have one. Okay, that would have been really embarrassing if it was just like a wall of like Bill Murray. But yeah, here's an example of when I saw Bill Murray. He was a famous person when I was looking at this tool over here. Or, you know, for another example over here, I can search, you know, how did I find out about this event? Or like, where all have I seen this, you know, the title of this event come up as part of it. And I'm able to see, you know, across all these different snapshots, you can see it was on my calendar over here and go all the way back to the original invite that I came across as part of it. And there's a couple of different ways to make this actionable, right? So within Rewind, you can immediately open it right back up into Chrome. And so get back to exactly where you were before, pick up your paces as part of that. And another really powerful thing that you can do is you can actually copy and paste from your past. So for example, I can just copy that to my clipboard right there. Or say, I'm trying to figure out, oh, who's actually running this event? I can actually, zoom in and then copy that name as part of it. So those are a couple of the different ways, to navigate around Rewind. But what gets me really excited is sort of our newest thing that we've been working on a lot, which is Ask Rewind. So it's our GPT-4 integration. So it's the ability, OpenAI's ChatGPT is really great at the reasoning power and being able to reason through things, but it knows nothing about you. So what we do is we bring in all the data from Rewind and sort of help you parse through that. And so you can ask it really, really cool things. So for example, I can ask it, how I know Paul from earlier, who I just copied that from in the past. And what it'll do is it'll sort of scrape through all my digital history that I've had in the past, all the times that Paul has ever appeared in conversation. And then just scrape the text from those, important moments in my past and generate a response from GPT in this case. So you can see it'll give a pretty detailed answer about, how we know each other. And my favorite part is that, it always references any of the past moments. So you're able to open it immediately right back up into Chrome as part of that. And you can also view all the sources that sort of played a role into generating this response as part of it. So you don't really have to worry about hallucinations because you're always able to go back and see exactly where it pulled from as part of that and have that reassurance that exists there. And it's not just helpful for like those summaries. You can also have it for example, synthesize or do work for you, right? So I can say synthesize all the research I have done on tools for thought. And so it's sort of becoming this second brain concept, right? It's not valuable like the human brain is to the recency bias and the halo effect. But what it does is it has all the information, it knows everything that you know as part of it, and you can start to interface with it and get some really good answers and sort of outsource a lot of the work that you do as part of it. So for example, it's sort of going through a summary of the different things that I've looked at that are tools for thought. Of course, mentioning Rewind because it's, very self-obsessed. But no, I think across the board, it'll give me a good synopsis and be able to sort of cite all the different times that I've come across it as part of it. So yeah, I know our hope is to give humans perfect memory and to continue to build this out. Right now we have a Mac app and we're continuing to build out. So we're in the phases of, building out for iOS and Windows. So if you want to come work for us, we're a small team of about 15 people and hoping to give humans perfect memory. So yeah, that's a little bit about Rewind. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Brett. Yeah, that's all the talks for tonight, although the talk on Rewind has made me realize that I want to take a picture so I don't forget everybody. So, so smile. Wow, I can't even get everybody in here. This is awesome to see so many people. We started doing events about a year ago, and our first event was 10 people in a room, and this is probably number 5 now, and each one just gets bigger, and it's really surreal to go from thinking about doing an event to having all of you in a room, and we're so grateful that you came out tonight. I also want to shout out Yext. Everybody at Yext has been amazing. Aaron, Alex on sound, Molly, who's not here tonight, but helped a lot with coordination and all that. Yext is truly a great partner for the tech community in New York. I found out about this space from other events here. So give a hand to Yext. Yeah, that's all from us tonight. We need to be out of the space by 9, so we've got a little bit of time if you want to mingle. I don't know if there's pizza left, but I hope there is because I'm hungry. Yeah, I think some of the speakers will be able to hang around and maybe show some demos and answer your questions. So yeah, thanks again.